I'd really, really like to see how AI can contribute to expediting site investigations and that whole ground investigation process.
Welcome to the Ground Investigation Podcast, a show featuring interviews and insights from leaders in the geotechnical and geo-environmental business world. Join host Michael Taylor as he discusses the ups and downs of running a business in the GI industry, getting geological experts to share their learnings and lessons, as well as their plans for the future, highlighting what they think will improve the ground investigation industry moving forward. Now, here is your host, Michael Taylor.
So you've been involved in contributions in the growth and development of various companies. What kind of strategies have you employed to drive growth and achieve margin improvements?
That's kind of like concentrating on the business development side of what I do to develop companies to grow and achieve greater margin, etc. So that starts with, of course, the challenge, and the company directors and the board or whoever will say, this is your budget for the year, this is where we need you to be, and that's for a specific year. But then there's also the 5-year growth plan and everything else. So it's not just about chasing down the opportunities in the tenders. It's more about making sure that the whole team, the whole business, the company is equipped and prepared for growth as well, so that you don't grow too fast and then you can't meet the expectations of your clients. So when you're trying to grow a company, it's not just on turnover, it's growth as a whole. Growing every single individual has to be ready for that growth. And I think that it's not just the business development person that will grow a business, that the whole company has to understand what the goal is, and they have to be on that same wavelength. They have to be, ready to ride it together. So that's where, you can set these targets. And then it's all about building the team that's going to cascade that to the whole workforce, to everybody that's involved in the company, and say, this is where we're going to go and this is how we're going to achieve it. And every single person in the company needs to understand the goals and aspirations for that growth, because without everybody in it, the company won't grow. So it's really important to share the aspirations, to share the target and where you're going to go and how you're going to move and get there together. So it's not just about, targeting the industry and getting the opportunities, which is important, so it's important to find that one sector or multiple projects that are going to help you to do that, and building the relationships with the clients and making sure that we've got everybody in the pre-construction team, they're ready and they know that these particular projects are coming up and we're preparing to tender for them and get all the information that's required. But also during that tender process, the rest of the organisation, it's not a secret. We're tendering for some really high profile projects, or we're tendering for a new sector, and try and build up some excitement and say, everybody's going, oh, okay, this is really happening. I'm glad I work for this company because it's going places. We've got aspirations and I want to be part of it. And that's really important, that if you're growing a business or you're moving into a new market, that everybody feels part of it, because everybody will contribute to the success of the business. And it doesn't matter what role they have in the company, without them on board, it won't be a success. So everybody needs to understand how important they are and how important their contribution to the success of a business is. So it's not just getting the tender, winning the job, walking away and letting operations sort it out. It's all about, I think, I might be wrong, but the way I see it is getting everybody involved. And also when you're planning these things, you need to make sure that people are on board, and they're only going to be on board if they feel that they're part of it. So I learnt a lot from a lady called Claire, who I worked for when I was with RSK. And the way that she held our sales meetings and things, she chaired the meeting, but she didn't actually say anything. She left everybody to do their talking, to give their ideas and their opinions and all the rest of it. She just brought us all together. She wasn't disengaged. She just always listened, and she left people to become part of it and to own little bits of it and to be a part of the jigsaw, rather than sitting at the top and saying, this is what I'm going to do and you're all going to do what I tell you. I've learned an awful lot from that, in that if we're going to grow a business, we need that spark of enthusiasm, but it needs to come from everybody, and everybody needs to be involved, and everybody then needs to contribute. And if you involve people early and they'll feel part of it and they're on that journey, then they're going to contribute, and the growth will be successful. But also in all of that, when it does get to operations and you've landed the project, you need to make sure that you're going to do it with some profit, with some margin. And that's where, you need to be investing in your workforce, in your team, and making sure that they're prepared. They've got all of the certificates they need. They're audited, the rigs, the equipment, everything is in tip-top. You've got an accredited laboratory. All of the lab technicians understand that what they're doing is really important and it really matters. Everybody needs to feel valued and empowered to help in achieving the goal and growth and everything else, and be invested. So it's no good just telling people what they're going to do and then poking them with a stick. They need to be invested right from the very beginning. Everybody's contribution matters. Everybody's thoughts matter. That's the whole working together as a team, not only in your own organisation, but also with the client side as well. What do they actually need? And understanding what they need, and then delivering above and beyond expectation, and they'll ask you to do it again. And that keeps the momentum and the growth going. It's, those relationships that build up with the client side and your team and the drillers, the field staff, everybody, but also, the laboratory people as well, the lab technicians and the managers. Everybody plays a part. I think that's the key, making sure that everybody understands the part that they play. It's no more or less important than anybody else's. It's a piece of the jigsaw, and the business will grow.
How do you get people from different levels within the same company to kind of buy into that vision?
It's communication, and I think we've suffered an awful lot due to COVID, and when the country was on lockdown, it was a really hard time because people were working from home, and then people were working in isolation, if you like, and then communicating over Teams and different platforms, and that kind of slowed things down a little bit, because those conversations you have when you're making a cup of coffee or you're in the canteen, or, they're really important. And they're the places where things happen. And there's no concept, there's no them and us, there's no lab staff and geologists and engineers and drillers. We all share the same space, and that's where the conversations come about, and everybody thinks, oh, well, you know what, they're tendering for this big project, they don't know the ins and outs of it or anything like that, and also, it might be 6 months from tender to actually getting on site, but it generates conversation, and they're going to build a new stadium or something's going to happen, and we're part of that. And I think that's really important, that it's about communication, not on a highfalutin level, but just an everyday level that everybody can relate to. And it comes back to this being proud of what we do as an industry. Everybody, no matter whereabouts in an organisation you are, I've sat at an airport, Sheffield Airport. It's closed now, unfortunately, but I can remember I was sat there and I was thinking, oh my God, I did some plate bearing tests for this runway. And I was so pleased with myself, like telling somebody, oh, guess what I did? I did some plate bearing tests for this runway. And they're looking at me like, what is she talking about? But I was dead pleased with myself. Yeah. And that's the thing, things do get built, things do get constructed. When the samples are going through the laboratory, the technicians will say, oh, this is for an airport, or this is for a new stadium, or this is for whatever. And then in conversations and in years, they'll say, actually, I tested those samples. Or, I extruded those UT100s, and then we did the triaxles on them or whatever. And it really matters. So getting everybody on board so that they understand where the company is going, what we need to get there. And the most important thing, I think, is for any business to grow is to have everybody on board and everybody wanting the business to grow, everybody wanting to play a part in the success of the business.
So you mentioned communication a few times there, and obviously the geotechnical industry can have a lot of complexity in terms of projects. How do you kind of communicate to perhaps, non-technical stakeholders or clients, etc.? How do you convey the message in a way that they will understand?
I'm quite a simple person, and I'm an advocate for plain English without any highfalutin explanations of the complexities of the actual design and things like that. But I think it's always better to put things in simple terms and explain differential settlements. So you have a slab, and if this part of the ground is softer than this part of the ground, there's going to be some movement, and that's going to crack your building, whatever. And then straight away they go, does that happen? I'm like, well, yes, because even if, you've got a leaky pipe and it's near the foundations of your house, that will cause the ground to soften and you might get some cracks. And then straight away they can relate to it. And they say, oh yeah, is that subsidence? Well, yes, it is. That's putting it in really simple terms. And then people think, oh, actually, they get an understanding and appreciation of it. I think it's just to keep it simple. It's not rocket science. It's geology and it's ground investigation, and rocks and soils have different strengths and different properties and things like that. And that's for, the technical experts to sort out and take the risk out of them. But when we're kind of like selling the concept of ground investigation, it's really easy to sell it because you just explain. Without a ground investigation, you're building on something that you don't understand. You don't want a building to fall down. Nobody wants anything to move. So that's why we do a ground investigation, to give a structure certainty. And then, it's if you keep it simple, people understand it and they can relate to it, and they'll say, oh, I remember when this happened or that happened. And you say, well, that's geology. That's what it's about.
Yeah, no, it's a good way of doing it, because if someone can relate to it, especially in subsidence, because depending on what area of the country you live in, you can generally understand that, or maybe you're near a mining area and there's collapses into that, you can kind of go, oh yeah, I've heard or I've read about that. So that's a good way to kind of cut through it. What would you say is kind of common misconceptions that people hold with the geotechnical industry, and how do you think they can be addressed?
So the misconceptions do you mean within our industry, the tier ones, or do you mean general public and people that are outside of our industry?
Either one.
Well, within our industry, the conception is that ground investigation, the actual contracting side of it, is easy. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's really difficult. The different rock types, the different strata, particularly with rotary, you need to understand the ground. You need to get the right drilling bit, the right flush, the right rig. You need to choose the right tool for the job. All different, because it's an investigation. But we can look at all of the published information and previous investigations. And if you speak to your contractor, they'll put the right combination of techniques and methods together to give you the best solution to do a ground investigation. But there's that misconception that, oh, we need 4 boreholes. Just go and get somebody to do that. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. It takes years and years and years of experience of ground investigation, of drilling, and to put the right team with the right equipment and the right tools to achieve the best possible outcome. So when a client or a specifier is saying, just have an investigation and tick a box, that really disappoints me, because there's a lot of thought and experience and knowledge that goes into doing a ground investigation properly.
And then you think in the general sense, I suppose in a more general sense, I'm pretty certain if you stood in the middle of the town centre and asked 100 people, do you know what a ground investigation is? Maybe 0 to 1 one person would be able to tell you. From their side, they don't really care, do they? Because, like I say, it's hidden. They care about the house that's built on it, in how it looks and where it is, etc. For them, it's not a consideration, is it? It's only really a consideration for perhaps the house builder, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like anything. The general public or everybody, we all like beautiful things, but we don't always appreciate what's underneath. and what it took to get that beautiful thing. Whether you're wearing a nice outfit, if you're wearing, nice makeup, you need something underneath it to make it shine or whatever. And it's all, they're the bits that nobody talk about. And that's the same in ground investigation and construction. You have a beautiful building, a dam, whatever, but what about what it took to get to that point? And it's the ground investigation. And nobody sees that. That's the hidden beauty, I think.
Yeah.
That's what's underneath. That's what enables things. And people don't understand it and they don't know about it because it's in the ground. And the worst thing about trying to promote ground investigation is that actually we need to go, investigate, leave, as if we've never been there. And that's a skill in itself. And the best contractors will always almost be like stealth, the invisible contractor that came, did the investigation, left and put everything back as if nothing had happened. That's remarkable and it's an achievement, but that doesn't help us to promote ground investigation to the wider world. People only ever know about ground investigation when it's gone wrong.
Yeah.
Or a site being left in a sorry state, or a farmer wasn't able to get his crops or whatever, or there's ground rutted and things like that, or something's happened where the ground investigation has left a mark. That's when we get bad press, but that's the only time people will know about ground investigation. They'll never know that there's boreholes being drilled in the British Museum. There's been boreholes drilled in Madame Tussauds inside. Nobody knows. And that's the mark of brilliance of ground investigation, which is a double-edged sword. But it's the way, that's the skill and what we need to do. But people don't always see it. Well, they never see the ground investigation phase.
Like, say they only know about it if something goes wrong. If you're not in the industry or related to the industry, the construction industry, then it's something you would never consider. Just like if you took your car into a garage and says you need to fix this, and it says, well, do you know what I've had to do to fix it? You're like, I don't really care. Does it work? Yeah, okay, then I can take it and carry on. So you mentioned implementing a cost-conscious culture in your current role. Could you elaborate on this and how the culture change was achieved and the impact on project management and profitability?
Wherever I've worked, there's always been, the project managers have a concentration on the actual delivery of the ground investigation, the physical part of it, the boreholes, the field works, and then, the lab testing, getting the report out. But there's been a shift in recent years with the site agent and the project manager being more hands-on, not just in the physical side of the ground investigation fieldwork section of the works, but also right from the very beginning of a project with a handover from the tender team and whoever estimated and put proposal together, the bid writer, the estimator and everybody that works in the pre-construction. They have a handover to the project coordinator or the project manager and say, this is how we price this job. This is the output that you need every single day. This is how many meters you need to achieve. This is your program for works. This is how many rigs we've allowed. This is how many crews we've allowed. This is how many ground workers, engineers, supervision, all the rest of it. This is what's allowed in the actual tender that has won the job. And then that project manager goes away and they put their RAMs together, but they just really expanding on what the proposal was. They know exactly what numbers, if you like, and teams that they've got to deliver the project. And then their challenge is to deliver it on time, in accordance with the programme, but also in accordance with the cost. So every single day, the engineer or the site agent project manager every day, they need to understand project progress to programme. And so understanding that every single morning in the DABS meeting, the starter shift briefing, they need to be saying to the crews, your task today is 10 metres and an installation. Trial pitting engineer, your task is 3 trial pits today, perfectly reinstated. And everybody knows what they're supposed to do in accordance with the programme of works. And so the engineers are then wholly responsible for not only delivering the site investigation, but also delivering it on cost. It's not always been the first thing that they think of. They think, I've got 30 boreholes to deliver and I need to get all of it reinstated and the samples and demobbed by this date. No, you've got to do it on cost as well. Where there's any deviation from the specification, where there's a change, they have to manage that change, but also say to the client, this is going to cost you more money. Or sometimes, do you know what? Everything's going really, really well and we're going to finish early, but I'm also going to put you an early warning in that we're going to finish early because I still want paying for the permits and everything else and the accommodation, the welfare that we've had on site. So it was making the engineers understand they're not actually just drilling boreholes and getting samples out of the ground. They have a real responsibility to make sure that all of the site work is done in accordance with the programme and the specification and the tender that the tender will put together, so that they can then see it's going to be profitable, but also all the way through the post-site works as well, the reporting stage, making sure that the samples are of the right quality so that the testing can be done, making sure that, there's adequate samples taken, that all of the tests progress through the laboratories at the right time without deviation and everything else, and the report goes on time. And so we give them contract value reconciliation. They know the costs of how much it actually cost the company to do that work and how much we are going to be charging the client for that work. And hopefully, understanding all of that and the commercial side of a project, that in itself will bring better safety. People won't be cutting corners, they won't be rushing, they'll say, no, we've got to get this right first time. So we've got to go carefully, it's been priced properly, but also it improves the margin because we're using audited drillers, we're using competent, skilled workforce, we're using good plant and equipment that's fit for purpose. And also everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. So it's all about communication and having a competent workforce, kit that's fit for purpose, and going and doing what you've said you're going to do in the tender and delivering. And if you deliver, even meet and exceed expectation, not only will you get a profitable outcome, you might get another job off the back of it as well, which is where you want to be. And people will pay more for a job well done. They absolutely will. And they'll come back and they'll say, you did that job, it was absolutely fantastic, here's the next one. And by the way, we're not going to tender. You can do it. And then you can say, all right, we're going to do another job, we're going to do it equally as good, but we might put a bit more margin on it because you trust us. And that's the thing. If your customer trusts you to do a really good job and to do what you're going to do safely, on time, on budget, they'll ask you again and again and again.
Yeah, this repeat business is certainly cheaper for the company than having to go out and win it and kind of go through the entire process again. It costs more and it's more efficient for repeat business. So of course you have to do a good job. What advice would you have for smaller geotechnical firms or startups looking to establish themselves in the industry or compete with the larger, more established companies?
Any small job, anybody that's starting up, be ambitious. Don't be held back by being blinkered or short-sighted. Go for the big job. Have an aspiration to get your business up to the standard and size of where you can take on the biggest players in the industry. And, I really, really, really want the likes of, Soccertech and RSK and soil engineering. I want them to know that, concept's going to grow and we're going to be snapping at your heels. That will drive innovation. It will drive competition. Competition's good. So any small company that's just starting up, I would say, you're obviously ambitious because you've set your own business up or whatever, but being that ambitious and keep thinking, I can do this, the company can do this, and make sure you've got all of your accreditations and all of your certification and everything else in order, and then you can go and you start on the smaller jobs, and then we'll grow and grow and grow because your reputation is everything. And so as you do more and more jobs, your reputation will grow, your business will grow, and people will have confidence in what you're doing. I don't know everything, but I do know that reputation is everything to get repeat business, and that's how you grow a business.
It's a small market, isn't it, really? So if you do something wrong, you don't act in the right way, then it's such a small industry that you can kind of kill progress straight away, really, if you do something wrong.
But exactly, and people only will remember the last job that you did. That's the same, not just for the company, but for the individuals as well. Any engineer or project manager, site agent, you're only as good as your last job, and the same with drilling as well. You're only as good as your last borehole, because that's all people will remember. So always try to be the very best of yourself.
Okay. Well, how do you approach projects with a kind of unique geological or perhaps environmental conditions? What kind of special considerations would you have to take into account?
Well, every single project is unique. It doesn't matter where it is, it's unique, because the ground will be what it is, and that's an investigation. So every single project has to be approached individually, and it starts with a site walkover, collaboration with all of the consultants and the engineers and the third parties and the landowners, etc., to make sure that you're planning it appropriately, and then developing a bespoke set of risk assessments, methodology, safe systems of work, and then looking at what's been specified, and then building up the right pieces of equipment and the right teams to go and do the job. So it doesn't matter if it's a site of special scientific interest, or it's on a nuclear site, or wherever the project is. We always have to make sure that we're pulling the correct team together with the right certification, with the right qualifications, with the right level of experience, and then going and doing the job. So I don't think there's any particular project that is so unique. I think everyone is unique. And if you take that approach that it's never been investigated before, and we're pulling together all the right elements, then it will succeed.
Finding the right staff is hard, really hard. At GI Rec Limited, we understand the ground investigation market inside out and can make all the difference to your recruitment woes. You need to concentrate on running the business, which is very difficult to do without the correct number of qualified staff. We can help you get your time back and lower your stress levels. We only work with talented, referenced, and often entirely exclusive candidates across the ground engineering sector. Wouldn't that be nice? It's not a dream, it's a reality for many of our happy customers. Get in touch with the team now to book a call. Just email info@girec.co.uk to book a call, or click the link in the show notes now.
Throughout your career, what are some of the key lessons or skills you've acquired that you believe every geotechnical engineer or person that works in ground investigations, ground engineering in general, should strive to develop?
On a technical level, attention to detail and understanding the geology, the ground conditions, and logging every sample as if it's absolutely unique, and properly looking at it, not just thinking, oh, I've seen that before, I know what that is. It's taking the time to assess every sample individually and then logging it properly, because the devil is in the detail. And that one sample that you didn't log, or you went, oh, I've seen that, you've opened the tub, oh, I've done that, that's where something might be. So I would say, on a technical level, starting right at the basics, make sure when you're logging, you absolutely log everything. Not only because it's important, but also, that sample, it's taken a lot of effort to get out of the ground, to be in front of you. You need to do it justice, because the drillers have stood in the rain or the sunshine, away from their homes and families or whatever. So when you present it with some samples, log them properly, log them absolutely accurately, because they do mean something. They absolutely mean something. Every single sample is important. And so that's the basis of my technical career, if you like. I really enjoy logging, actually. It's taking the time to look and consider every single sample, because there will be something in there and you don't want to miss it.
So on another note, how do you kind of stay updated really with the latest advancements or potentially research? What kind of resources or organizations do you keep in touch with, receive newsletters, that sort of thing, so that other people can perhaps, look into them and subscribe?
So it's really important. As an industry, we're only really small, and a lot of innovation or development or research is shared at industry seminars and webinars and things like this. So, there's the AGS, the BDA, all of the industry bodies, if you like. It's really important to engage with them. They put out newsletters, they share information, they share industry best practice, they share changes in specifications, in industry guidance and things like that. So it's really important to take notice of those industry bodies. And there's people, as we said, with the BDA and the AGS, there's people in the background that give up their time to pull this information together and to share it. So it would be really ignorant to ignore it. And so, newsletters, podcasts, any event that you can go to, ask your managers and big organisations, whatever they are, there's a pot of money for training and development and things like that. So it should be spent on these industry days and seminars for sharing an industry best practice, innovation, and it can only improve things.
No, it is important to. I mean, the AGS you can subscribe. I think there's ground engineering. I think you have to pay for that one, so you would have to use some of that budget. But the events are generally free, as far as I know. So some of the ground engineering ones, I think you have to pay. So if you're a member, it's much cheaper. But there are other ones, and the networking events.
Yeah.
They have talks, whether it's geotechnical, whether there's a contamination one that was on just a little while ago. You can go there. You can watch talks. You can look on YouTube. There are things about the industry on YouTube, whether it's here or somewhere else. Podcasts. There's a few geotechnical engineering podcasts out there as well. So there are kind of free resources. They might obviously once you've published a resource, it starts to become out of date, but some of the key things within it will still be applicable.
Yeah, absolutely. New civil engineer, ground engineering, some of the other things that you've mentioned, they're all sharing case studies. They're all sharing, projects and where hazards have been encountered, and it all goes towards broadening knowledge of the sector to drive innovation, to drive improvement, because we generally only react to something when something's gone wrong. Oh, what can we do to make that not ever happen again? And that's, where things come from. And so there's lots and lots of resources that are free to access. Free as in you can attend or you can read for free. But what's important is that industry managers and directors and supervisors give the person time to attend these things because they're often during the day. So there is a cost to company and cost to business, but it's an investment because it's a learning, it's continuous professional development, it's learning, it's networking, it's business development.
Okay. Where do you think the industry is heading in the next decade? Where would you like to see it heading?
Well, I'd like to see much more ground investigation done. For all projects, I'd like to see much more ground investigation done. Not just for the industry, it's buoyant enough and we're worryingly short on resources and new talent. So I would like to see it a little bit more visible and more appreciation being taken of the ground investigation sector and people understanding that it is really important, so that it becomes part of wider construction industry courses at university, courses within secondary school and education, so that people understand that geology is a thing and the drilling industry is a thing and we can get new talent and new blood into it. But also as an industry as a whole, I'd really like to see much more collaboration with the tier one contractors at a really early stage. And we're getting there with things like the HS2 frameworks, with national highways frameworks, setting up these frameworks because that generally encourages early involvement. When the earlier we can get involved with a construction project, the greater value can be found in a ground investigation. So where I'd like to see things develop, it's in that early contractor involvement, raising awareness of site investigation and the importance of geotechnics, how it can be, de-risk your project as a commercial thing. But also, I'd really, really like to see how AI can contribute to expediting site investigations and that whole ground investigation process. I mentioned earlier about drilling parameters recording and core scanning and all that kind of stuff. They're really powerful techniques, and I'd really like to see things like that brought into the industry as commonplace, where the drilling parameters recording is brilliant and it kind of like measures the behaviour of the drilling rig as it's drilling the borehole. So it's not detracting anything from the driller at all, because years ago the drillers always kind of have an ear listening to the rig, listening to how it's behaving, and they can tell if you've gone into a different strata or whatever. But this just kind of like captures all of that the driller, a really good driller, instinctively knew when he was listening to the rig. And it captures the behaviour of the rig, the torque, the drill pressures and the rotation speed, all that kind of stuff. And you can set it to take a kind of like snapshot every centimetre or whatever. So you can very, very, very accurately log what's going on in the borehole as the borehole is progressing, because it's captured in real time. And then if you're doing core, for example, you can take the core samples, you can put them into a core scanner, a 360 degree outside photograph, which can be unwrapped, so you can look at all of the fractures and the fissures and everything else, and you can see exactly where the strata changes and things like that. But then when you put that together with the drilling parameters recording data, it's mind-blowing how accurate that information is. And that's where I'd really like to see things going. More digitalisation, because you've got the accuracy and quality of the data that we're capturing almost instant. It can all be, transferred and turned into AGS and everything else. But we've really got to get onto the, this idea of artificial intelligence and how we can use AI to read that kind of data. Because I think, lots and lots of people are switching on to the idea that we work in the ground investigation sector and we drill boreholes and we get samples. And that's what our client pays us to do. But it's not. Our client doesn't pay us to do that. Our client pays us for data. How we get that data is up to us, because we have to get it safely and we have to make sure it's of the highest quality. But our clients don't care how we get that data. They just want their data. And so if we can develop or use things that are already developed and have them specified in ground investigations and have, the consultant engineers convinced that the clients, look, this is the future. This is what we need to be specifying. I'd love to see drilling parameters recording, core scanning, and just those advances. Because as an industry, we're really slow at picking things up. And then we pick them up and we play with them for a bit, and then nobody specifies them, so we put them back down. But I'd like to see, all rigs fitted with, all rotary fitted with DPR, core scanners instead of, photographs. We're still taking photographs. Yes, they're digital, but it's a photograph. Why not have an image that you can unfold it, you can unwrap it, you've got 360, you can see all the way around it, you can put them onto different programs, and then you can do all kind of modelling and God knows what else with it. Why aren't we there yet? That's been these processes have been around for about 15 years, even more. But they're just not commonplace, but I'd like to see them commonplace.
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, Soil Engineering had the digital scanner for the core as well, and that was a good while ago, certainly within 15 years anyway.
Soil Engineering had that a long time ago, and I was working with Digby Harman and Matthew Baldwin, and we invested heavily in not just the equipment, which at the time cost, thousands and thousands. It was very expensive for the core scanners, but also retrofitting all of the Jean Lutz equipment to do drilling parameters recording. So a huge capital investment. And then on the marketing side as well, we were promoting, this is the future, this is how it's going to be. I can remember having conversations with Matthew and Digby, and they just said, we're banging our head against a brick wall. I'm like, but no, it'll come. And it didn't. It's not specified enough. It's absolutely brilliant. I believe in it. I absolutely believe in it. And I'd really like that to be adopted and used. You can gather the data, particularly with drilling parameters recording. If you're in a high risk environment, such as on a motorway embankment or a railway siding or whatever, you can use it in open holing mode, so you can gather all of that information quite quickly, 3 times quicker than you would be coring. And then you can be in and out in a shift. And then a little bit away, you can drill a hole and take the core, and then you can correlate the two. So you can get information from really high risk, dangerous places where you've only got a window of opportunity under possession or whatever. And then you can use it and correlate, and you can have a greater picture of what's going on under the ground, so that you've got more certainty for when you're designing foundations or remediation solutions or whatever. but it's just not been adopted on a big grand scale, but I'm hoping it will one day. And as we have advances in AI, certainly for reporting and things like that, perhaps that'll come back into its own. I'd really hope so.
You think it's a kind of attitude of, well, we've done it like this for years, this works, so why would we change our approach? When really that, if all industries said that, nothing would progress. Humans would still be at a much more primitive level if you didn't try and didn't improve on things that you did. And I like the AI. That's something to utilize as much as possible, because that is going to be the future. There are some things that's just going to completely take over. So you might as well be first rather than catching up in so many years when everyone else is potentially using it. Why not be at the forefront? Because it's only going to become more entrained within our lives as we kind of go through. Okay, so that pretty much brings us to the end. I just wondering, in closing, what kind of message or advice would you like to leave people over the audience?
If you're in the ground investigation sector, keep going, keep doing it, because changes are coming, and I still think it's really exciting, and I still love my job after 30 years. So, there's definitely a career path in ground investigation, in geotechnics. And if you've got a passion for it and you enjoy it, then stay in the industry and try and encourage other people into it. Whether you're going into schools or whether you're just talking amongst friends and colleagues or whatever, let's try and get new talent and try and make our industry less unseen. It's the secret bit of construction. Let's try and bring it to the fore and be brilliant and be shiny and make people want to join us.
Great passing comments. So now we're going to move on to a quick fire quiz. Right. So question 1. What's your favorite go-to geotech gadget or app?
It has to be a hand penetrometer. I love those.
Okay. Question 2. What one word would you use to describe the feeling of completing a challenging project?
Achievement.
What is the most memorable fieldwork mishap?
The biggest mishap that I ever did, it's a long time ago. I'd been asked to go and blow out a standpipe piezometer that had silted up. So I'd got this nitrogen bottle and a cable, and the engineers told me how to do it. And it was on a grass roundabout, on an A road. So I pulled my van onto it with my flashing light and all the rest of it. I got all my high vis on, everything's good. Opened it all up, put the line down to the bottom, turned the gas on, and I over-egged it a little bit, and I went full on. The whole lot came out. The line came flying out. The whole installation came out. And then about 2 ton of gravel came out. It was all over this roundabout. The cars were swearing everywhere. I thought, oh my God. So tidied it all up. And I went back to the site agent. He said, did you clear that one out? I went, oh yeah, it's done. It's absolutely done. And I never admitted. So it was done. It was definitely cleared out.
No need to do that one again. Okay, so
I never did that again. I learned.
I bet you didn't. Right. Best geotech related movie or book recommendation?
Oh, now, definitely not Armageddon. Because that's all wrong for a start. So, best book. Well, probably when I was doing my A-level, there was a textbook just called Earth. And it was quite simple and like an introduction and to the origins of the Earth and all that kind of stuff. And that's the one that really got me interested and makes me still to this day interested. So it wasn't particularly technical. It was just really fascinating and interesting. And that's the one that really sparked my imagination and my career path.
That brings us to the end of the podcast, Natalie. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day and spending it speaking to myself and providing the audience with so much value.
Well, thank you very much for asking me and inviting me to do this. It's been my absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Ground Investigation Podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, then please support the show by leaving it a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. For more information on what was discussed in this episode, click the link in the show notes now.